Good evening and welcome to the February 27th Economic Development Meeting. We have a quorum. May I have a motion to approve the minutes for October 24th?
So moved.
Any discussion? Motion passes. Item 3, items for consideration. We have the Great Merchant Grant.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the committee. My name is Paulina Martinez, Assistant to the City Manager. Tonight, we bring 7 business districts and 1 affinity group presenting their applications for funding through the 2019 Great Merchant Grant. Their requests vary from planters to banners to graphic design assistants. The economic development staff issued RFPs for planters as well as banners, which are summarized in the memo, and we will also work with the business district leaders to fulfill their additional requests throughout the year. The total amount that we are recommending funding for tonight is $51,443. And I'll briefly let the business districts come forward and introduce themselves and indicate which business they represent. So if we can come up and just introduce ourselves, please. Just your name and who you're representing.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Donna Walker. I'm representing the Central Evanston Business Association.
Hello, Clarence Weaver, representing the Central Evanston Business Association, as well as the Black Business Evanston North Shore efforts.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Takesha Keys, and I am the president of the West End.
Hello, my name is Carrie Brown, and I am representing the Maple Foster Group. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, Tom Erd from the Spice House, representing Central Street.
John Lineweber, Hill Arts District.
Howard Street could not be here tonight, but their request is here, and Alderman Rainey has been very involved with the merchants as well, so I'm sure by now she can answer all the questions about their proposal. Do you have any questions about the request or anything?
I have no questions, but I want to thank you, Carrie Brown, and the businesses of the Foster Maple District for forming and uniting and moving forward with this association. Thank you. It's new. Okay. Any further discussion on that? Alderman Rainey?
I just want to thank all the business districts. I remember when this all started. Maine Dempster, I guess, really started it. I just can't believe it flourished like it has. I mean, just going down my street is just amazing to see the banners and everything. It's really great. So thank you, all of you, everybody. So, and Paulina has been fabulous.
Fantastic,
For all you
Paulina.
did.
Thank you for working so hard and
Yeah.
closely with all of the businesses. The great work even that you did with the facade program. Just we can't thank you. We can't get it done without you. So thank you.
Well, thank you for your support. Appreciate it. Do we want to?
No.
All right, so I move that we recommend the City Council approve the requested financial assistance through the Great Merchants Grant Program.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. Congratulations to you guys. Thank you for coming. We're going to move on to B, the Entrepreneur Support Program. We have one application, Betty Nelson.
Okay, Betty, where are you?
Good evening again, Paulina Martinez. This month, we received one entrepreneurship support program request from Ms. Betty Nelson from Nelson Career Curators. She is requesting $2,500 in assistance to cover the cost of her career coaching certificates, as well as assistance with financial services for her business for a cycle of 12 months. I will let Ms. Nelson introduce herself and explain her business model a little more.
Welcome, Ms. Nelson, and thank you for the application.
Thank you for inviting me here today. So my name is Betty Nelson. I'm founder and owner of Nelson Career Creators. And we partner with students, professionals, and institutions for career planning, executive leadership development, and workforce solutions. And so at Nelson Career Curators, we believe that you do what you love, not what you must. So some of the services that we offer are resume writing, career coaching, and financial planning as well. Any questions?
Any discussion?
So this is more out of curiosity. Just in a couple sentences, tell us about the Rogers Park Grow Program.
Yes. So I attended the Rogers Park Growth Program to learn a little bit more about how to design my business plan, specifically who were my target markets, who did I want to work with specifically in coaching, and what my outcome was for this business in coaching and why this was so important. And I learned that I wanted to assist mostly in career development because there is a need. I've learned that over the years of my own personal experience and working with clients freelance, there's a lot of coaching needed for resume writing, and specifically how to interview or how to dress for an interview or just your first day at work. And there's a lot of transition that happens there. I mentioned 3 facets. Students, specifically for them, I'm more focused on career planning. For professionals, that's where the executive leadership development comes into play. And for the workforce solutions, those are the institutions. So just asking for additional help and partnering really with them and how I can provide value in what I've seen with my past and current clients.
All right, thank you very much.
Alderman Rainey?
Who offered this program in Rogers Park, and where can other people access it?
Absolutely. It is accessible. I actually learned about the program from Hubris Wealth Global Management, who's also based here in Evanston. I attended in Rogers Park. They have ongoing classes. It was a boot camp of 6 intensive weeks of just going through business and financing and allocation, and they provide a lot of support. Even now, if I wanted to kind of, just pick up the phone and call, I can certainly reach Cherie Morado, who's been a tremendous support to myself as well. So you can go online on the Rogers Park. Okay, thank you.
Business Alliance?
Yes, Business
Yes.
Alliance. Yes, there you go. And you can register for their upcoming classes, or if there's just the one class that you would like, you can also
But
attend.
is it through the community council, Rogers Park Community Council, through what?
It's its
under
own
whose
entity.
auspices, huh?
The Rogers Park Business Alliance, it's its own entity.
Okay. All right.
It's the same organization that manages the SSA on Howard Street.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, I got it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for what you're doing. Such a need, especially as we're focusing on workforce development here. It's right in line with our goals here on council. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Any further?
Where do you get your students?
Where do I get my?
Yeah, how do you get them?
Sure. So mostly from their parents. So I opened a business account in Chase, for instance, and I was just explaining what I do, and she referred her son.
Oh.
So just through conversation, networking, depending on the need for the person that I am speaking with, they'll refer their students. I'm also a certified college planner. I forgot to mention that. So I do host college planning workshops. I've hosted a college planning workshop here in Evanston last year, and so I've had a few students from who attended with their parents, and so we had the conversation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Motion.
Sure, I'll move that we recommend that the City Council approve the financial assistance for Nelson Career Curators through the Entrepreneurship Support Program.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion
very much.
passes. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
It's sweet.
C, we have the Evanston Development Cooperative request for funding.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of the committee. I'm Paul Zalmazak, the Economic Development Manager for the City of Evanston. Tonight, I'm going to essentially tag team with my colleague, Sarah Flax. The Evanston Development Cooperative is requesting $60,000 from the Economic Development Activities component of the CDBG, the Community Development Block Grant Fund. The Evanston Development Cooperative is planning to launch an initiative that I'm going to ask them to explain. You've heard this before, but this is an opportunity for us to really jumpstart it. It's a spark opportunity to help fund the salaries to get the job going. So I'll introduce Sarah to give you a little more, or Ms. Flax to give you additional detail, and then Mr. Coe will give you all the detail that you would require. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Sarah Flax, Housing and Grants Manager. Excuse me. Don't know what's happening to my voice here. I'm here tonight because normally CDBG is allocated through the Housing and Community Development Act Committee, but with economic development projects, the committee and the council allocate a pot of money, in essence, for economic development activities that then requests come to the Economic Development Committee. And the reason for that is, unlike our nonprofits who are doing programs, economic development activities don't necessarily come up neatly only once a year when we do our major application. So we've gone to this process where we allocate funding for economic development activities, and those requests come through the Economic Development Committee. At the moment, history of what we use those funds for, and this is in our con plan, funding technical assistance for microenterprises or startups has been something that we have funded, and that's in our consolidated plan. And in addition, we can make direct funding to businesses, for-profit businesses, and this can be in the form of grants or loans, and it can be for a wide assortment of uses. It can be basically what we funded most often have been startup new openings of restaurants. That's kind of what we specialized in using CDBG for. But it can be for a wide range of needs of a business, and the business cooperative is a business entity. It's not a not-for-profit, but at the same time, it's a very different structure from most of our for-profit businesses that we have funded, and their startup situation is very different. So I'm going to bring Dick Coe up to explain a little more about, from a business startup standpoint, of what they're looking for, and then I'll be here to answer any questions. About CDBG, anyway.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for having us here. My name is Dick Coe. I'm one of the co-founders of the Evanston Development Cooperative. I'm here with Robbie Marcus, my co-founder, and Eric Dingle, one of our co-incorporators of our co-op. We are an Illinois incorporated cooperative. We were incorporated in December of 2018, and we've been up and running ever since. I presented here last October about the technology, how we want to build sensible housing. Since then, we've been out in the community talking to workers in Evanston, potential investors, residents who care deeply about affordable housing, job creation, and also equity and sustainability. And we've also been talking to property owners and homeowners in our city, looking at who are interested in erecting either a coach house, an accessory dwelling unit that will solve their current housing pain points, to property owners who say, I have land, whether it's commercial or residential, saying I can create another accessory dwelling unit on my property. So here, we respectfully request the funding to really accelerate our efforts. As a cooperative, we don't fall squarely in a bucket when you talk to a bank or a lender. So this really will help us directly hire the workers we need. Because of the technology we use to build our houses, we can use lower skilled labor, and that will really get us started. We can frame a house with the labor that this grant will allow us to hire immediately. So we're, again, talking to homeowners and property owners right now, exploring what options we have. We're submitting bids to property owners next week, so we're really excited to get started, and this grant will really help us get going faster. So thank you, and I'm happy to answer questions.
Alderman Rainey?
Well, when you say you're really excited to get started, you mean to build something?
To build something.
Well, you can't build something until you go to the city and get permits, and you got to have a place to build something, and where you're going to build it, you have to maybe go to ZBA and maybe go to the Plan Commission, something, so you can't start building something, for 6 months? I mean, it's going to take a while. And are you going to train the people that you're bringing in, or are they going to already be maybe skilled in some way?
Great. So we will have a mix. Great. Thank you for your question, Alderman Rainey. So yes, we hope to break ground by early summer, looking at projects where we don't need to go to ZBA, but
We'll keep an eye on
Can you
it.
give us examples of what those might be?
yeah, whether it's a studio apartment in a mixed-use zoning where by right they can build that, to a coach house that don't exceed the setback or lot coverage or height. So we expect to be able to find properties to do that as well. But answering your question, we will need a crew of 3 to 5, and of those, we will need licensed professionals in Evanston, that electricians, plumbers, roofers. But with the technology that we bring that is different from another GC is the wall panels, that those workers we would train. We could potentially bring them to the vendor in North Carolina to be trained, and that would be a way to jumpstart it. Yes. And we are.
Look
and I
for
should,
something that's permitted. That would be very smart.
absolutely. And also, we request this funding, I hope, in a reasonable way. We want it to start with a part-time position in year 1 that transitions to a full-time based on need. So in our proposal, we want a portion of it in 2019, another portion in 2020, assuming our business continues to grow and that we use these funds responsibly.
What is it? You have your co-founder, and then Mr. Dingle is a,
Incorporator.
can you explain
Sure.
what an incorporator is?
Yeah, so every state handles co-ops a little differently. In the state of Illinois, you need 5 incorporators in order to incorporate a co-op. So we have Robbie, myself, Eric, and also Jonathan Newsma and Bea Echeverria as the 5 Evanston residents who put their name down as initial incorporators, but also shareholders of the co-op.
Can you explain the additional opportunity for investors and how
Yes.
is the return shared? So you have the 5 core incorporators,
Yes.
and then those that want to invest after that, what are they called? And tell me what the opportunity is like.
Great. Thank you for asking that question. So as a cooperative, we are employee and community member owned. Even though we are incorporated, we hold no special rights. We have the same vote that any investor or worker in the co-op would have. So the way we are structured, we have 2 classes of shareholders. The Class A shareholders are the workers and the EDC employees. The workers get paid their wages, and at the end of the year, based on the hours worked, they get a share of the profit. Class B shareholders are Evanston residents or Illinois residents who have a commitment, a long-term commitment to Evanston, who can invest from $1,000 up to $10,000 to own from 1 share to a maximum of 10 shares per Illinois cooperative law. And at the end of the year, they receive dividends on their shares based on number of shares. They are all in the general assembly in the co-op, and it's one member, one vote, no matter what, the size of your investment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Is there any staff here that can clarify if this model is similar to the model of the city-owned property on Church Street, 1817, or is this totally different? Because that wasn't successful, so I want to distinguish the difference between the two. Thank you.
So we have to kind of, I guess, brush off the file on that one. It's been maybe 6 or 7 years, but we've been monitoring it as it's completed. And the cooperative concept there was that the group of contractors had planned to, mostly through sweat equity, most of the building contractors did not have cash, and that was one of the reasons that they were contributing their time. This group, I don't even believe it was, I don't believe it was incorporated as a co-op in the same way. I know it had the Evanston North Shore Contractors Cooperative. That was the name of the entity. But they worked together, sweat equity, built out the space, some invested cash, and then that was the extent of the cooperating there, but there wasn't an ownership buy-in like you'd see in in this example, or in like a grocery kind of co-op. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So I'm just trying to understand, so.
Do you have your mic on?
Sorry. Can you hear now? There we go. So what I understand in year one, which is this year, you're going to have a couple of pilot projects and a part-time general manager and one construction, how many construction employees?
Contract employees up to probably 4 or 5 total.
Okay.
Yep. And the others we would finance through just our fundraising through the subscription of our shares.
The other employees?
Yeah,
you
yep,
finance. Okay. And then in 2020, you would imagine how many projects then?
5 to 7 projects.
So kind of gradually increasing
Mhm.
and allocate same number of employees? Or?
By end of year 2, we hope to double, so we can be building 2 at the same time. So we expect each project to take 3 to 5 full-time or contract employees to do.
So 3 to 5 contract employees for the 6 months, the year, a month?
Depending on the job, the size, the size of the job, and also the complexity of the project.
Yeah, I'm just trying to understand how many employees are we considering in terms of months, work months or whatever? Do you know what I'm saying? Like instead of 3 employees for 2 months is different than.
Got it. Yeah, so this would support, and you're asking specifically the CDBG money would support, or just overall the company?
Just in
total. Got it. Yeah, so I'm working on this full-time, essentially, and also we'll bring on others. So, but in terms of construction, we expect, I'm trying to add up how we would, 2 to 3, just 12 months, full-time, essentially, if you add it all up, it would be.
2 to 3.
Yeah,
okay.
At least.
And why are you asking for a grant instead of a loan?
Great. We are asking for a grant because as a cooperative, we see this as, we're not structured the same way as a for-profit business. We don't have a majority owner, but even though we are a for-profit in the eyes of the state and the IRS, our ownership structure is very different. We see this as an opportunity to get jobs right here, keep community wealth in Evanston. And so we think a grant would allow us to do that the fastest.
So with the jobs, it's project-based, so you're projecting it based on how many projects you would like to do, and the construction jobs are all contracted, so you're not going to maintain that. It's a variable expense. You're not going to maintain that if you don't have the projects.
Correct.
Right.
Our goal is to grow the projects, and I hope by year 2, year 3, that these are full-time employees, whether they are carpenters or electricians. Our goal is to have that vertically integrated in a way that treats our workers properly under the co-op.
Awesome. I want to make a recommendation that you follow what's happening on MWEBE committee. We are working on a Green Jobs Initiative and Fair that we probably could use your partnership in.
Wonderful, I will.
So I couldn't be more encouraged by the work that you're doing for residents to have an opportunity to own parts of our city. It's creating job opportunities in a space that we don't have the talent right now, a growing space of green jobs and construction. It will help develop our workforce so that we can do better about meeting our goals for local employment on the planned development and all of the other projects that we do here for the city. And then it's sustainable. So you are building on properties that we own already. You're creating housing stock that is obviously a need for as well. So thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for the audacity to leave your job at Northwestern and do this full time. And thank you to Robbie and Eric for your commitment to this and all that you've done to support the community in the construction space and the housing space. Robbie, I'm sad we're going to lose you. At some point you're going to graduate. You're not going to be here anymore, but I'm in full, he's staying, right?
We're trying to convince him to stay in Evanston.
Yes. So I couldn't be more proud to support this work.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? Is this for action? Yes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry, we need a motion first.
So move.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Congratulations. Thank you for the hard work.
Thank you, everyone.
Alderman
Thank you.
Rainey?
Yeah, not on this
Okay.
specifically, but for Sarah. I just want to say that while this does need to come here, I think that's important. I do think since the Community Development Block Grant Committee has plenty of opportunity to review issues like this, and we are able to meet, and we have scheduled monthly meetings. This should come to our committee for review. And I really want these kinds of expenditures to come to our committee. There's absolutely no reason why they can't.
No, I agree. We'd set it up this way, so we were following that. We can change it.
I know, but there's
There
no
are
reason why it can't come there, because our committee needs to know about these things. And for us to get rushed like with 10 meetings a month, all of a sudden, and after September, and to really not have any substance to deal with in between, just crazy. We should, because we can really get into something like this and learn all the details.
Do we like to take an action for it to
I'm
go
just
to
I'm
committee?
just saying that we should.
No, I just think
wanted
for
to make a
future-
point.
Okay.
That's all.
Okay.
Well, one of the things we can do is, we are doing our new con plan too, and if we want to change our processes, we can do that. Right now, this
is not the
process.
place to do it.
Right.
I'm just sending you a message.
Right, no,
Thank
that's
you.
fine, absolutely. Got that note. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have D, approval of 2019 meeting schedule. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 4, any items for discussion?
I have some.
Yes, Alderman Rainey.
Yes, I'm going to stand up for this. I sent everybody an email tonight, late this afternoon, saying that you might be interested in this. I have been doing a lot of research on Howard Street lately because I've known for quite a while that there was a theater years ago in the 700 block of Howard Street. And I thought it was called a practical theater. But the more research I did, I found that it was really called the John Lennon Auditorium. And it was at 703 Howard Street, which is now, I believe that's now where the U-Haul, the rekindled U-Haul is, right next door to the cidery. I found that there are all sorts of articles still online about the theater group, Julie Louis-Dreyfus, Brad Hall, all sorts of people did fabulous theater there. And they went on from there to do Second City, and because they outgrew the theater. And when the theater was named the John Lennon Auditorium, before their first show, John Lennon was killed. And they decided not to change it to the Memorial Auditorium because they wanted to celebrate his life. Anyway, the person that owned the building owner at the time this was all going on, I'm sure you all know Judge Larry Elrod, Judge Elrod. His family owned this building at that time. And I just thought all these connections are so interesting. And as I did the research, I found this drawing done by Ron Crawford. And so I got in touch with Ron Crawford, and I ordered several of the prints. And I'm going to pass this down. I'm going to give this to the Economic Development Department so they can frame it. And he sent me one, and he signed it. And said, but it's so interesting because the Practical Theater is right here. Howard and Custer is right here. And Elmer's Water Sports, which is now on Oakton, you know, in the loft building, was right here. It looks like it's probably 707. Elmer's Water Sports. So it's just so fascinating. Anyway, so there's just all sorts of information online about what was going on back then. And it was really a very dynamic area. There were dress shops and a camera store, and it's just so interesting. And it was called The Miracle on Howard Street, and now it's all back. So I thought that was interesting. Anyway, so
Thank you.
would you make sure that Johanna gets her hands on this tomorrow and that you do it justice with the frame? And Ron Crawford told me that there was a band, or orchestra, small orchestra that played here, and his son was the drummer in it. So there's a really long history.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey.
Oh, you're quite welcome.
Communications, monthly economic development communications? Nothing? Thank you. And announcements, any other announcements
I have
from the
some.
committee? Yes.
I mean, does anybody read, any alderman, do you read these things here? The Economic Development Tracker? They're a little out of date. I just want to bring people up to date what's going on, at least in my ward. It stops with, we're working on banners, and we have our banners now. And I don't know if you all know, there's a gas station at 140 Chicago Avenue. It's been there for 100 years, you know, kind of old, and it's going to all be renovated, torn down, and rebuilt. The Gaynor Monument Company is going to be demolished. Sherwin-Williams is going to closing in March. The plan is for event space there. I don't want to brag too much about anything else, but a lot of good things are happening. I think it's-
Alderman Rainey will make sure to update that.
I mean,
We have
it-
multiple versions of it floating out there, so we'll make sure that the most current is in the next
Yeah.
city council report as well.
Yeah.
And I will announce, we are, on March 5th, we are bringing a new staff member on. Her name is Katie Bowden, and her primary responsibility will be to be presenting reports in a different way. We're not going to have lists and lists and lists of spreadsheets for you. Hopefully it'll be infographics, dashboards, and better ways of communicating what's going on Howard Street and throughout the city.
The second show at the Howard Street Theater is getting ready to open. And City Grange wants to open a garden store, outdoor garden store for this, when the weather gets.
Oh, pop-up store.
Yeah, pop-up store.
Thank you. Anyone else? Do we get a report from MWEBE? Feeling like I should do that. I'm current chair there. Is that something that we normally do, or?
It might be in the city manager's monthly report.
Okay, but to this committee, because there's a lot of relevant work being done in that committee. We don't, okay.
Good question. Can I add something else?
Please.
I just came from the parking committee, and I was really distressed. And Alderman Nguyen is on that committee. I'm just really distressed. I asked for, and this is economic development, I asked for a loading zone at 415 Howard 4 months ago. They're going to talk about it again next month, which will make 5 months. We removed Chicago taxi cab. We're removing it. The taxi cabs are still parked there. I don't know if they removed the sign or not. That took 3 or 4 months for them to approve that. I'm now told that I can't have a loading zone in front of 415 Howard, that I have to have it back where the taxi cab stand is, which is in front of Carol's Chicken Shack, which is not going to help 415 Howard. 415 Howard, as you all may know, is a 17-story, 221 unit, very, very lovely building that's currently undergoing a complete renovation with a brand-new management company, the same management company that does E2, that is in the midst of 3 blocks with absolutely no curb parking. So you cannot park there. We need a loading zone. It has a 24-hour concierge. And we're not allowed to have a loading zone in front of and you know why? Because there's a bike lane in front of the building. That is unconscionable, that building cannot have a loading zone. And I am demanding that we have a loading zone, and that it not take 6 months, that it be put in ASAP. And this cannot be happening. These people, and the problem is the video, the photograph that they showed on the slide, what do you suppose? A mail truck is parked right in front of the door in the bike lane. I said, well, you don't put the loading zone there. People are going to be using it as a loading zone. Let's make it legal. But we can't do it because there's a bike lane. There is no parking for 3 blocks. In the 300, 400, and 500 blocks of Howard Street, there's no parking.
I have a parking.
At the curb. There's no place to unload people. It's an elevator building. Many people who are disabled live in that building.
Thank you, Alderman Rainey. Alderman Nguyen?
Yes, Alderman Rainey, I completely support your effort to get a loading zone there. I think every single member of Transportation and Parking supports that. The critical issue is that the bike lane, from our understanding with staff, is that the bike lane was installed using federal funds. And the federal funds, Alderman Rainey, if I could solve this just like that, I would. Federal funds projects are very strict. So in order to alter it, there's going to have to be something done in order for us to not violate our federal grant money. That's my understanding.
Alderman Nguyen, I heard that, but do you know what? 10 feet away, 4 spaces for a taxi cab stand. Why would you start a bike lane in front of a 17-story building?
I did not design it, Alderman Rainey.
You know, federal funds have been used for stupider things than this, and this is a stupid thing. And if we have to erase 20 feet of federal funds, white paint, then we're going to erase 20 feet of federal funds. I mean, I heard that young woman's explanation, and it didn't cut.
Well, I think that at Transportation and Parking staff will be working on this diligently.
No,
You were loud and clear.
5
and-
months is, that's
and-
not diligent.
I want to take this time to share my frustrations with our parking process as well, having
I'm here.
2 business districts or corridors that are not able to get the answers, and I've been told that we can't even get on committee until May. So I'm asking now that, and I don't know how I do this, but if the parking committee, and maybe that's you, give us at one of our next meetings a report on what the process is and what are the barriers to get things moved along, because I'm dealing with businesses that their customers can't get to them because there's a parking issue that we need to solve on both Church and Dodge as well as on the 1600 block of Simpson.
Well, I am no longer the chair.
Okay.
Alderman Ravel is the chair, but I will pass this information on to her. We barely completed our agenda tonight in an hour and a half, and if we need to have some special parking committee meeting, maybe that's what we need to do.
Okay.
Okay?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any further communications or updates? Alderman Braithwaite, anything before we adjourn?
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. So this is going out to our staff. I recently had I think Alderman Simmons and I have had multiple conversations, Paul, about the power lines that stretch across both wards, particularly the high tension, in the
transmission lines along the Mayfair.
Yeah. And so I've had a couple of conversations with Carlo from ComEd, and I said, I've heard developers over the years talk about it, but I've never really received a number, and is it possible? And so I invited him to meet with our staff and give us like a formal presentation just to know what exactly would be the cost, and is it possible to bury those power lines. And then the other thing for Alderman Sims, also Alderman Rainey, we've had multiple discussions, but we've never really had any action, and I've asked Carlo about, and this is something different, so I don't know where this referral is going to go, but he will be here hopefully next month, the alley lights and paying for the alley lights. So he has models where other municipalities have just, the city or through CBDG have actually paid for those lights. And my understanding now is that they have been replacing their older lights with newer LED, more energy efficient. So I would love for him to, again, I don't know if this is the right place to do it or if we do it at AP&W, but I would love to have that conversation as well. So I'll follow up with an email to you, and hopefully we can get him on it, if not the next meeting, then the following.
Thank you for having that conversation. The transmission lines originate on the border of both the 5th and 2nd Ward along Lyons, and they really do kind of divide the neighborhood, and it's really hard to develop. You can only get so close to them, and that would be an incredible opportunity if that could happen.
Thank you. Anything further? May we have a motion to adjourn? Thank you.